Hello everyone. So last night I was on Craigslist and I was just browsing around and I saw this Macintosh Plus listed for $50 only. And I talked to the previous owner. He said the last time he tried to turn it on, it sounded like it was looking for a floppy disk, but the screen didn't come on. So I figured for $50 it was worth it. So this morning I went and picked it up. And here it is. I have not tried to turn it on yet. Now, thankfully, I actually do have some period correct 800K floppy disks that I can use to test this thing. But I don't see the point in waiting any longer, so let's try to turn it on and see what happens. Alright, so it's plugged in, and I'm going to go ahead and flip the switch. Huh. Okay, well that's definitely an issue. It sounds like the floppy drive is indeed moving, but it doesn't look like the screen is coming on, or that the computer is doing anything else. So, I do see a door in here for the battery, and I'm going to pull this off and see if there might be some corrosion in here. Well, okay, surprisingly there was an Energizer battery in here, and it looks very old, but I'm not sure exactly when it's from. However, there is a tiny bit of corrosion on here, but it's not even that bad. It looks like that wouldn't have affected anything at all. So, I don't know really that much about these computers. I'm not sure if it needs the battery to work or if a bad battery would stop it from working, but let's see what it does now. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of research and I'm going to see if this is a common issue and if there would be a simple fix for it. Alright, well, this is quite a bit from where I last left off. However, I've done my research and it turns out the power supply on this computer, which is called the analog board and also drives a CRT and does some other high voltage stuff, is where most of the problems are on this computer in terms of reliability. And basically what everybody does is they replace all the capacitors, or ReCap it for short, just because, you know, these computers are like 35 years old now, and capacitors just generally don't last that long, I guess, even though this is before the capacitor plague. But anyway, so I've ordered a kit to recap this thing, and when that comes, I'm going to replace all of these, and then I'll put it back together and see if it works. You can see it would have gone right here, all along the right side of the computer, and that's where the power switch and the battery and the 3-prong plug are. Thankfully on the Mac Plus, the battery is not built into the motherboard. Rather, it's on the analog board, which I already showed. But I did realize that the little bit of corrosion on here did actually destroy this terminal. And there's a little bit of corrosion that was on this screw up here, but it doesn't look like it really affected anything. What would probably be a good idea when I recap this is to just, reflow that. Probably use some alcohol to clean it off, but I don't think it's that much of a concern. So, yeah, basically I'm assuming what the problem is that this power supply and the whole computer, they're just so old, and mostly the capacitors, but they just can't output the correct voltages anymore. Now, I didn't bother checking them with a multimeter, but I did actually ask on a Discord server, and I heard somebody that said he had the exact same issue with his Mac Plus. He was doing the exact same thing intermittently, and he opened it up and there were a bunch of bulging capacitors on here. So fingers crossed that this is going to be the solution to this issue, and then we'll have a working Mac. I still am going to need to get a mouse and keyboard for this, but that shouldn't be as much of an issue. And I do have some software for this actually that I can use to test it out. So I'll be coming back when the new ReCap kit arrives. Okay, so the ReCap kit came today. I got it from Console 5, and I'll put a link in the description to that. And it comes with this helpful guide here with some information, and they also gave me this candy, which was nice. So I'm just going to go through and replace all of these capacitors. Now, I'm not going to record me doing this just because it's kind of a pain, and I'm no expert on soldering, but when I'm done, I'll get a good shot of the finished product, and then we'll put it back in here and test it out. Alright, so the ReCap is pretty much done. I've gone through and replaced pretty much every single capacitor I can find. All these blue ones here are new, and a lot of them are a lot smaller than they used to be. For example, this 16 microfarad, or excuse me, 16 volt 2200 microfarad capacitor here. And this is still an original one because these two capacitors here are originally they were the same size and the same capacitance, but I only got one in the ReCap kit. So this one was a little bit bulging originally, so I replaced that one. So this one is just going to stay original. Hopefully that is still good, but we'll have to see. Other than that, everything else was basically a drop-in replacement. There is this one, for example, that was turned into a film capacitor instead of a ceramic one, as well as this one here, which is I don't know what it's called, but this black box as opposed to this kind. And there were a couple capacitors where their voltage limit was much higher than it originally was. For example, these, which were, I believe, 16 volts originally, and they went up to 100 volts. I'm pretty sure these are the right capacitors because I couldn't find any other 33 microfarad capacitors on the motherboard, and that's what these were rated at. But anyway, the ReCap should be done, so I'm going to go ahead and reassemble the computer. I'm not going to reconnect the anode cap at first, just so I don't have to go through the hassle of unplugging it again. But I'll reassemble the machine and I'll give you an update. Oh yeah, and here's the big pile of capacitors that I replaced. And I also got two extra ones, which seem to be duplicates. They came in this strip of two, and I only needed one. So I'm not exactly sure why that is. But anyway, let's get this Mac tested. Okay, so the Mac is reassembled enough in order to test it. Once again, the anode cap for the CRT is disconnected, so I won't have to deal with removing that again. But the analog board is in fact installed, and now I just have to plug it in to test it. And the way I see it, there's about three possible outcomes. The first one is that the computer works perfectly. The second one is that it stays the same, and the third is that it just completely doesn't work anymore. And I guess the fourth one would be that it blows up, but then you wouldn't be watching this video. So anyway, I'm going to plug this in now. Okay, no explosion. Hey! That is a startup chime. I could hear it doing the same thing a couple more times, but then it looks like it posted. So I'm going to plug this anode cap back in, put the rest of the computer back together, and see if we get anything on the screen. Alright, the computer is back together, and I do actually have a floppy in the drive, so we can test that out. And it's an 800K one as well. Alright. Well, it's chiming. I just hit the reset button. Uh-oh. Weird. Well, we've kind of fixed it, I guess. Or maybe we haven't. Well, that's a little bit disappointing. But hey, it did kind of work. Now, one thing I neglected the first time around was that this computer actually does have 2 additional capacitors that they recommend to replace, but I did not read the website before I bought it, so I did not look at that. And there was that other big high voltage capacitor which didn't get replaced. So maybe that is still an issue. This computer might also have motherboard problems as well that could be preventing it from working. And the floppy drive could be bad as well. So recap, in this case, it did make a slight improvement, I guess. Just for fun, let's go ahead and plug it in again. Yeah, not gonna do anything other than that for now. So this is where I'm gonna leave the Mac Plus for now, and there's probably gonna be a part 2 of this, you know, once I get this computer in a little bit more of a working state. Honestly, I didn't expect the recap to completely fix it, but you know, at least we got a little bit more life out of it. So I'm wondering if this computer might have a little bit of a logic board problem as well. So I'll ask around, I'll see if there's somebody that knows a little bit more about these computers than I do. And I'll see if we can get something worked out. So stay tuned for part 2 on this thing, and that should about do it for today.